and welcome to Mind Gourmet. My name is Nina Kaiser. I'm the co-founder of Mind Gourmet and, as always, your host today. My today's guests are Icelandic and British thought leaders, co-founders of the Network for Transformational Leaders and authors of The Story of Boxes, The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, Rúna Magnús and Nick Haines. Welcome, Rúna and Nick. Thank you for being my guests.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, we've been really looking forward to this one, Nina.
Yeah,
Me too.
And even though we're in a box on the screen, you know, there are 3 boxes, we're really bursting out of them.
Yeah.
Perfect. And you can come over at any time so we can switch boxes.
Okay.
So let's jump in right away. Please share who you are, what you do in your lives, and how actually the idea of the Story of Boxes book has been birthed.
Okay. Do you want to go first, Rúna? Ladies first?
No, it's Nick first.
Me first. Oh, thank you.
We do things differently when we're out of the box.
So my name is Nick Haines, also known as Nicholas Haines sometimes, if you search for me online. And my background is Chinese medicine philosophy, and I've been working my whole life towards creating social change and helping people become the best version of themselves, dealing with difficulties in their life, some aspects of health, but also looking at businesses and politics and how do we create inclusive societies. So my passion is Chinese philosophy, and I get swept into all sorts of things like this idea of boxes. So yeah, that's my background. And I'll let Rúna say how the idea of boxes, there's no more boxes, came about, because it's a good story. It's a good story.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Yeah, I'm Rúna Magnús' daughter, or Rúna Magnús, or yeah, you can call me Rúna even. That's enough as well. And I'm Icelandic, lifetime entrepreneur. And if I should describe myself today, I describe myself as being a creative being. I used to call myself creating doer, but I got fed up with that path. So I decided that I'm going to change that whole perspective of myself and become a being. And what does that mean? It means that really going through what Nick is saying with the Chinese philosophy for me about knowing my vitality, knowing my natural flow, and being really aligned with who I am and how I can serve the higher purpose that I am here to do on this planet. And to answer the question, how did the whole thing about the Story of Boxes, how did that whole thing come about? Well, it's a really, really fun story, or at least I think so. So it all started in the United Nations, of all places. The Changemakers, including myself and Nick, and we were 5 of us there. Our role was to do a special call to action panel at the Global Summit Impact Leadership Conference. And during the day, I was one of the panels that were there. Nick was actually on that panel called Conversation with Man. And I sat there and was listening to Nick, you know, the conversation that, quite frankly, I am so fed up listening to about that. You know, why are we not getting equality and people being valued for who they are, no matter what gender or race or background or religion or whatever? This has been a topic that I've been basically my whole life trying to figure out. Why can't we just go there? Yeah. And I'm listening to Nick as Nick is talking about the real issue of why the UN Sustainable Development Goals as an example, it's difficult to reach them. And he starts to talk about what happens if we are constantly placing ourselves or placing others into boxes. And he starts to talk about, well, if you are a man and you love to collaborate and you're soft and you caring, and collaboration and co-creation is something that it's just natural. You're told to man up. Stop being such a pushy, sorry the language. You know, that's the language and that's the what more men get. And then on the other hand, if you're a woman and you're fast forward thinking, you're ambitious, you want things to be done, and then you start to lady up, you know, relax, don't be such a butch, you know, and all of those things. So you constantly, no matter who you are, you're constantly trying to fit into something that isn't even there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just invisible, but it's something that we're all trying to do without even thinking about it. And what it's costing us, it's costing someone like myself, who absolutely, sorry, I'm just not that lady, that description of that co-creator, whatever. I had to learn that thing so that I would be accepted. And as I looked at the whole, you know, in that stadium in UN, I'm looking at the panel and I get that Matrix moment, really. It's like, gosh, yeah, that's the thing. We're constantly doing that. Why can't we just accept people for who they are and value them for who they are, regardless of how they look or how they dress up or what is the gender or whatever? How about that? And then later that, following actually our trip there, because of a storm that was coming up in New York, Nick and we had very quickly to change our plans and go to JFK Airport. You know, it was all in a hassle. We were in the taxi, and we thought it would be maybe about 45 minutes drive to the airport. But it actually took us 2.5 hours because of the storm that was coming up, and it was chaos. It was chaotic. New York was supposed to close down and all of that. Anyway, in those 2.5 hours, Nick and I start to talk about the boxes, and we kind of like just went high. We just went high, flying high in there, weren't we, Nick?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it was like one thing came after another, and we were like coming on with we're looking at all the different things that we saw in boxes. Then we noticed, my God, I am in so many boxes. I didn't even realize I was in all of that boxes. And that's where the whole movement, and that's actually where the hashtag came up, didn't it, Nick?
Yeah.
Can you tell her how the whole thing about hashtag, because we've been scratching our head afterwards, haven't we?
Yeah. Yeah. So we had this thing of no more boxes, because like Rúna says, if you have something in a box here and something in a box here, you have division, and we're trying to get away from division of men and women, division of in lots of different areas. So we thought, okay, what we need is no more boxes. And so we came up with that hashtag, and then we suddenly thought, well, actually, some boxes are really good. So you have a brotherhood and a sisterhood. They're really good boxes. Or you might have a group of people that come together as stamp collectors, and they hang together around their box, and they have they're grouped together and they collect stamps and they have a wonderful time. So we've said no more boxes, and that's actually probably a mistake. It should be probably no more ugly, divisive, horrible, destructive, racist, nasty, sexist boxes, but keep the rest. So that's kind of a very long hashtag.
Yeah. And not to mention on Twitter,
doesn't work. So no more we've got no more boxes, but actually we mean no more ugly, divisive, horrible boxes that create problems. The rest are good. Stamp collectors, they're good boxes to be in.
And here's the thing, what you're saying, Nick, just to take on that brotherhood and sisterhood and stamp collectors, what I've learned in our process afterwards and digging into this is that, which was a really aha moment for myself, was really the thing. Brotherhood and sisterhood is great when you get to be who you are, and you feel that you are nurtured, and you feel that you're being valued for who you are, and you feel that you can contribute, and you can share your value. The moment, however, that's exactly that same box that was so good for you, it twitches, and you are not aware of it. It kind of, most often it just happens, and all of a sudden you feel like you're stuck. That's when that same box, whether it's called brotherhood or sisterhood or collecting stamps, becomes a bad or even an ugly box.
Yeah, they become divisive if you say, actually, this is what women are and this is what men are, this is the sisterhood, and actually we don't allow this, and or any box, they can flip very quickly. You could have a brotherhood that actually turns into a sexist box that starts to view women in a certain way that self-justifies itself. So they're tricky things. They can change quite quickly.
So in the context of the No More Boxes movement and your book, if we like condense it, what exactly are boxes? And can one box be all of the three things, good, bad, and ugly at the same time?
Yeah. So boxes are basically this propensity we have to classify people and things and say, okay, this is the box, so you're like this. So you might have, in the book, we use the example of a librarian. So if you have this picture of a librarian in your head, what does that look like? Oh, well, there'll be glasses and they'll this and they'll have that. We'll have this description of a librarian. Well, actually, a librarian might be a one-legged monk with bright red hair. You know what I mean? So the problem with boxes is they trap people in that box. And so they're methods of classifying, and they're useful. They've been really useful over history. So as we were saying, a box can be very unifying. It can create a situation where people come together, they feel very safe. They have people with a common understanding. You have a common language, a common sets of beliefs. And that can be really supportive, and it can be empowering, and it can give people a sense of freedom. But if that same box can then start to exclude other people that don't fit with our beliefs, or don't fit with our view of the world, or don't fit with our color, or don't fit with our status, or don't fit with our faith or religion. So the boxes can be very inclusive, but by nature, they can also be very divisive. If you're not allowed in that box, they're divisive. So they're inclusive and divisive at the same time. And that's the challenge with them. And it's really just, the big thing is just being aware that I have these group of people in a box, and it might not be true that all of them are like that. So you might have people from a certain region with a certain accent, and you might then say, okay, well, those group of people are going to have this political view. So if they come from a particular part of America and have a particular status or a particular education or a particular thing, we'll then start to group them together and say, okay, they have all this political view, they're all the same. Well, that may not be true. There might be someone, or it may be that someone is in that box and they want to try to escape it because actually it doesn't match their fundamental core beliefs. So they're both unifying and divisive. They create liberation, and they also trap us. And the big key is just to be aware that they exist. And we do it all the time.
Yeah, we do. I was just thinking about it now that we, as this is recorded, they mid elections in the United States. Just actually, the results are coming in, and I was just last night I was watching CNN and all the interviews and everything that was happening there, and I was just thinking about one of the boxes that I've witnessed myself throughout centuries, and that when it comes to gender, putting one gender in a specific box. There was a lot of conversation about women in the US not fighting against Donald Trump. And I thought that was really interesting. I thought, wow, we're still doing that. We're still talking about women in one box, not fighting Donald Trump, regardless of what you think of Donald Trump. And the journalist who was actually in charge of the conversations there did mention, because of how verbal he's been and how sexist he's been and all of that. And I thought to myself, isn't this interesting that we there is this common thing that if someone is verbal to women in this case, that only affects women. Shouldn't the question be humankind taking a stand against it?
Yeah, I
Instead
agree.
of boxing it into women should take a stand.
Yeah. As though women are the. I mean, I agree. I think women do have, with the kind of sexist language and the rhetoric and the vision that's had it. But you're right. Men, I find it equally objectionable.
Exactly.
And so, are men motivated to vote against that? Yeah, I think they are. So say, oh, women should be voting against it. Well, anyone that has a value system that is against that stuff should be voting against it, regardless of our gender.
Regardless, exactly.
Yeah. Mm.
So the conversation becomes something really not about the issue.
No. Or women are blamed to say, well, how as a woman could you vote for Trump?
Yeah.
Well, because you shouldn't, because of what he says about women. But you also say, well, how as a man could you?
How could you as a man do that? Exactly. Yeah. And
if it doesn't clash, if it clashes with your beliefs.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really, really interesting one.
It's a really interesting one. And this is so embedded into how we communicate. And everyone is so into communicating this way that they're blindsided by the real thing here. And it's almost like they're being distracted. Let's not really focus about the whole thing, the real thing. Let's go into the same thing that we talked about for decades.
Mm.
Yeah, and isn't it that often it seems that the truth is actually hidden in plain sight, but we just don't see it. And I remember somebody saying recently, well, it's like if you are close to a TV set like this, because you're in your own bubble basically, or box, you actually just see colors and shades, but you don't really see what's going on.
Yeah.
And what I find very interesting is the question, how are these boxes created? I mean, do they belong to our lives? How do we get them? And why do we put ourselves and others into them as if it was the most natural thing in the world?
Yeah. But I think we've kind of broken it down into kind of 8 main categories, and so the reason that, because, they appear for many, many reasons. I think some of the early boxes appeared for safety. There were safety reasons. So if you were in a tribe and another tribe was here, you grouped together as in a box or a tribe, and actually it was probably safer for you to do that. And then that whole safety reason continues. So we'll often see people put themselves into boxes or put other people into boxes to make them feel safe, or to know what another danger is. So safety is a very common one. The second one is kind of that a lot of them are historic, that they just exist. They're driven by history. So we've always thought this way. So if you look at lots of writing over the years, it categorizes people historically into a certain way. So we have lots of really historic boxes. Another driver for boxes is just our perception. We're driven because we just perceive that people are a certain way. And again, what's the value of perceiving that way? Well, it helps us make sense of the world. It's just a perception thing. We also have boxes because they create a space for us to bond and align. So we can bond and we can come together. And that can be a wonderful thing, because one of the big human drives is to bond and align together. So the boxes help us do that. They keep us safe, they help us bond, align. They help us make sense of the world. They give us understanding. Okay, so if that means women are like this, and that means men are like this, and that means that this, okay, I understand how the world is. Mm-hmm. And that's a really big one for a lot of people. There's also a thing that kind of is about our status. If we're in a certain box and we put ourselves in a box, it can elevate our status. And That can be a good thing. And if we put someone else in the box, it can drop their status. So we can create a gap between we're here and they're there. Aren't we good and aren't they bad? So it can be a status thing. And then the final one is we often create boxes because it helps us acquire or obtain things. So you look at some of the communities or societies that come together, they box themselves together, that allows them to do more business or to acquire or obtain things. So we've got these kind of interweaving drivers for safety, understanding, perception, status, history, obtaining, etc., etc. They're all in the book, and we explain them in great detail. And once you understand, you say, okay, I get why I do it. I get why society has created these boxes. And what it does with the drivers, what's really important about them, is it gets away from this whole idea of blame, because boxes happen. It's just part of our human nature. Can you blame someone for trying to make sense of the world? Can you blame someone because they want to feel safe? Can you blame someone because they want to bond and align with other people? No, that's our human nature to do that. But what we need to be careful of, the very nature of creating a box, what then happens to that box is it creates lots of boxes and they start to divide, and we then start to have left, right, men, women, this, that, people from this country we have shithole countries, and we have Scandinavian countries. We have this madness but they make sense for us. We've just gone a bit crazy with them. So the whole thing about the story of boxes, the good, the bad, and the ugly, is just saying, okay, boxes exist. This is why they exist. Let's just work out what's good. Let's work out what's bad. Let's work out what's ugly. And let's just deal with those ones and call them out for what they are, and enjoy and love the boxes that make us feel safe, or create bonding or alignment, or allow us to have stamps.
Yeah.
Stamp collections that are beyond belief. My dad was a stamp collector. He would get together with people in groups and they would all talk about stamps, and I would go, okay.
Yeah, okay.
But by very nature there, what I've just done there is I have just ridiculed a box of stamp collectors by going, oh, they get together and they do all this. I just ridiculed them.
You did. Yeah.
I just did a box. I just did a bad thing with boxes. I've just written a book about it. They're difficult.
Yeah. They are challenging. They are challenging.
Very challenging.
And I think that's why this whole thing about being aware of it, and you know, and being able to say, even when you raise your awareness, and when you become aware that, just like what Nick was doing, rolling his eyes about people collecting stamps. I mean, what's
just happened,
right? Yeah, but when you're aware that you've done it, you can then even say openly to them, hey, oh, sorry, I think I just put you into a box.
Yeah.
So this is one of the things that we've noticed in this journey since March 2018, how even with that whole concept, we've, mistakenly or not, created a language. Yeah. That was quite an aha moment, wasn't it, Nick?
Yeah. And having that language, you're absolutely right, because I can now officially, in front of all the thousands of people that be watching this, officially apologize to every stamp collector for putting you in a box and rolling my eyes, because that's what you said. That awareness that, I've just done that. Okay, I apologize, that was wrong. That isn't my intention.
Yeah.
And
you, of all people, the kindness ambassador, shame on you.
I know.
Yeah.
Not good. But that's the difficulty with boxes. They kind of sneak in. They're, as you said, Nina, they're kind of, they're hidden in plain sight, and they sneak up and they catch us. And humor can be is an odd thing, isn't it? You can make a little funny remark about it. Or you can say, well, all rich people or all bankers are. Oh,
I'm guilty of that one.
Yeah, we caught you the other day, didn't we? Really?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, I was queuing up in my bank, and I actually observed my own thoughts there. And my thoughts were, gosh, bankers are so boring. And
so boring.
They're boring. They're just such a boring people. And as in the moment that I understood what I just did, and I thought, wow, why did I do that? You know, this is my self-talk going as I'm queuing up. And as I went a little bit deeper into why did I do that, and you know, the energy that I put into the world with my thought was when I realized the responsibility that I personally had on every single person on this planet that works in banks. I thought, what have I just done? And then when I started to dig a little bit deeper, why did that come? And that exactly at that moment in time, I noticed, and to be very honest with myself, it was me who was bored, queuing up, waiting in line.
You were bored.
Yeah, I was bored. So the moment that I understood that was my own boredom that I was dealing with, and I just placed them on all the bankers in the world, I could actually do something about it. And I made that very conscious choice right there in that line. Whoever was with me in that line at that day, you probably remember, because I started to smile with everyone. I started to talk with the person in front of me and behind me. And I started to create a conversation, and I tried to do everything that I possibly could in that moment to change myself and change the box that I was placing myself in, and every banker in the world.
Because imagine, Rúna, if one of your grandkids suddenly said, hey, Grandma, I want to become a banker. And you go, oh, you can't become a banker. They're so boring.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, exactly.
and there's, or you might not say anything, but it might just be your grandchild just picked up a subtle bit of body language.
Yeah, and I would go,
really? Or whatever it is. So it has these kind of unconscious biases that influence other people, make judgments, limit people, and it creates this division. And it just limits everybody. Yeah. And we just don't know we're doing it. We just don't know we're doing it until we catch. And so with this kind of, and it's really interesting with this common language, this language of boxes, and you have the drivers, kind of non-blame drivers, you can call out and say, oh, yeah, I've just done a box. Or I think you might be having some box thinking there. Oh yeah, I think I am. And it's not the same as saying you're being racist, or you're being prejudiced, or you're being bankist, or whatever it might be, saying that's a bit of a box. And you can question and think, yeah, actually, because not all bankers are boring. No. Not all bankers are men. Not all bankers are rich. Not all bankers are whatever else you have in that box, because we have hundreds of things about bankers in our bankers box, most of which don't apply to every single person that is in that industry. Well, definitely don't apply to them.
No.
Yeah, and isn't it that maybe because we are thinking so many thoughts every day, I think it's about 60,000 to 70,000, which we believe is our way, it's our reality. We basically feel so familiar in all of these boxes because they talk inside of us all the time. And it might also be the I'm unworthy box, or only slim people are attractive box, or every marriage after 10 years gets boring box. And it's so interesting that it became so clear again to me when I read your book that we are often going like blindsided through our life. This, what often people mention as a metaphor, is like you drive your car from A to B, and when you are arriving, you actually don't remember the way because you've been everywhere with your thoughts. That applies pretty much to, I mean, to how we live our daily life. And so I think it feels so true to me when you say awareness is key, because when you are aware, you have choices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you can adapt your way of dealing with the world. And I found it very interesting, and that's where I want to go to now, to read your 3-step framework for human liberation, peace, and happiness. Please tell us more.
Yeah.
Well, but before Nick starts to explain, because I think Nick is really good, I just want to point out that we're only talking about human liberation, peace, and happiness. Very simple. Small goal.
Yeah.
Nothing big. Go ahead, Nick.
We've got fairly low aspirations.
Yeah.
Human liberation, peace, and happiness. We could have gone for many other things.
Yeah, we could have.
Like job satisfaction, but we didn't. We just went for human liberation, peace, and happiness. Set the bar fairly low.
Yeah.
So the 3-step process is the first step is the one that we've been doing now, is just awareness, just creating an awareness that these boxes exist. And when we start to watch and observe and see them, our awareness increases. You start to see them. You start to see them everywhere. So that's just the first step. The second step in the and that's that gets to be really fun, starting to increase your awareness and see them. And remember, it's non-blame, non-judgmental. The second step is you kind of delve into an understanding about the boxes. And we just talk about being curious. So you have just a curious nature. Okay, I've just been aware of a box. Okay, I'm going to be curious about this box. Kind of how's it been serving me? Where's it come from? How did it get here? And you might be then curious as to, okay, I can see that box really helps me. It serves me well. It's done well. But I can also see that box is actually isolating someone else, or it might be limiting me, or it might just be wrong. Or in some way, it has some consequences. It creating perhaps some internal misalignment with me. So you have this kind of, the second stage is like an open curiosity of understanding. And again, that's really fun. You say, oh God, yeah, because I have this box because that's what my mother used to say. She used to say, and you think, that's where I got it from. It was, and so it's this curiosity is the second step of understanding its benefits and advantages, where it came from, whatever. Then the third step is really starting to make some choices. What do I want to do with this box? Do I want to acknowledge it and say, I love this box of being a father. I adore being a father. It's a fantastic box. However, being a father means that some negative consequence. Actually, I think that bit I'm going to deal with. So the third stage is deciding whether or not you want to stay in the box, whether you want to adapt the box in some way, or whether you want to escape it. So, for example, I'm dyslexic. So I struggle with writing and organizing and spelling and all sorts of things. So that's a box that I was put in at school, and a box that I have myself in. It has advantages and disadvantages. So when I get to the third stage, I can decide how much of that box I want to buy into. Okay, if I'm a dyslexic, does that mean I've decided I'm going to struggle to do a master's? So go into higher education. Does it mean I'm going to struggle to mark other people's assignments and work? Does it mean I'm going to limit myself in some way? So the third step in the process is we go through, and I think you know these, using conscious questions, these questions that we ask consciously to change our thinking and our unconscious mind to flip ourselves out of the box, should we choose to do that. So I might say, why is dyslexia a fantastic gift? Why am I grateful that I'm dyslexic? What are the benefits that I've had about being dyslexic? How's that been really good for me? So I start to break down any negative connotations. And you might ask the question, why am I an ideal person to do a master's? And again, it starts to break down these limitations, these beliefs. That's how you might apply it to yourself, but you might also apply it to other people. You might have a box that says that all bankers are boring. We'll pick up that one because we've done it. And you might then use a conscious question to say, what's really interesting about bankers? What would be fascinating for me if I was a banker? What would be, let me see how many really interesting people I know that are in there. So you just start to change it, break it down, free ourselves up from it. Should you choose to do that? So those are the 3 steps. You create an awareness, then you create an understanding with this curiosity, and then the third one is you decide whether you want to escape it or change it, liberate yourself, liberate someone else, whatever you want to do. And you can do that with conscious questions and other different methods that we use. So those are the 3. And it's a great, very simple process, and it absolutely works. Works a treat.
Oh yeah, it does. It really does. And another thing, because it raises your self-awareness, when you start to create that, or make that conscious choice, am I going to stick in that box? Am I going to love it? Am I going to adapt to it? Am I going to escape it? And if you choose to say, well, I'm going to live with it, and deep down inside, you know this box is not serving you, you probably, you basically are starting something new, I believe. I think just by saying, well, I'm going to accept it, I'm going to accept being miserable. You know, if you want to accept being miserable, then at least that you made the conscious choice that you're going to accept it. You also have something that can help you leave that and become happier. So it becomes your choice. And I think so often, I think, well, that's my core belief. My core belief is that when we see that we can do some change, and we believe that we can do a change, and it can be just a slight, tiny bit that can make us more happy, or that can make us feel more fulfilled, we can do it. It's really, it really is our choice.
Yeah. Because some boxes I can't stop being dyslexic. That's who I am.
So that's why
I can change my perception of it, and I can become celebrating and happy of it, as opposed to, oh God, just my.
Yeah, exactly. Again, that I do this. Yeah.
Yeah. Or putting other people that are dyslexic in the same box that I perceive myself as. Oh, they're going to be disorganized. Well, they might not be that style of dyslexic. They might be someone that just struggles with numbers and can spell very well.
Yeah, or even that you put yourself in that dyslexic box, thinking then everyone else is so bright and can do this and can do that or whatever.
Yeah.
And then there's another division, and you're thinking, oh, I'm not good enough because, oh, they must all be able to do something, whatever that is, because they're not dyslexic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. Yeah.
So would you say then that the box, let's call it I am dyslexic or I am a woman, itself is actually neutral, or is it maybe even not a box? Does it become a box if I put labels on it? Like women are like this, when I'm dyslexic I'm like this, when I'm an introvert I am this and this and this and this. How do you see that?
Should I go with this one, Rúna?
Yes. Sure.
I think the problem with boxes is we put one thing in a box first. So we might say, okay, this is a woman, and we're looking at genetics or genitalia or whatever. This is a woman. The difficulty is we say this is a woman, and we're also in that box. We're going to put collaboration because that's what we've been told. We're going to put caring. We're going to put listening. We're going to be not good at map reading. We're going to put. So the problem with the boxes is the amount of accumulation of other stuff we put in there with the original thing. Yeah. So it's the accumulation that's the issue, because the more things you put in the box, the more possibility, the more you've categorized, and the more possibilities you're actually wrong about that thing. So boxes themselves are initially fine, and then we just start putting more and more things in it. And that's when it starts to get to be a problem, that men are from Mars or women, I can't remember. Yeah, we're from different planets now.
Yeah.
we don't even, so, okay, so I'm not just a man and I need to shave. Actually, I don't need to shave much, but That's people say, oh, men, they have beards. Well, it'll probably take me about 6-7 months to grow something vaguely that you could see on screen. So it's the accumulation that's the issue. That's our problem. And that's what we need to just, so we can have a box, and I like to try and take as many things out of the box as possible. Yeah. So you end up with an empty box that just has a woman in it as a human being. And then you could say, well, actually, no point having these boxes. Let's just have human beings and not even have a man and a woman box. Because as soon as we start doing that, we're tempted to start putting other things in there. We can't resist it. We just say, oh yeah, yes, so women are do.
Yeah. And I think, just like what you're saying, Nick, just to add maybe a little anchor to that, what you just said and you put into the women box is only what you see as a woman's box.
Yeah.
It's not even my box.
No, you have something different in your box.
I have something different. And Nina, you have something different in your box. So just thinking then, oh, don't everyone say that women are collaborate, no. Huh? Because we all are different. We're close to 8 billion people on this planet, and we all have a different view on what is a woman from our own perspective.
Yeah. And we have kind of all sorts of problems. So a nurse turns up, and it's a man. Okay, hang about a sec. I've got gendered professions as boxes. So we say a nurse. Oh, I have a woman. So a nurse turns up and it's a woman. You say, oh, that's good. That's passed by my box. And then she's actually very intellectual and she's a researcher and she doesn't really want to do the caring business because that isn't her staff. So here we have a nurse that's non-caring. Well, you can't be a very good nurse. Yeah. You're non-caring. Well, who put caring in with nursing? Well, I did, because I saw little books with pictures of women as nursing going like this with people. So it's very easy just to spiral out of control and make judgments and make people wrong, or have your box that is in a certain way, as Rúna says, that might not match someone else's box, and suddenly you've got an argument. Well, of course women are like this. Of course women are all just out to do X, Y, and Z. Or of course women, or of course men are all like this. And then you can have an argument about your boxes. And well, actually people from this country, they are all like that. And we've suddenly got arguments going on. But boxes that are just made up with a load of stuff that we decided we want to put in them at some point in time, or the media decides that what's in a box. And we then have arguments about things that are just made up. Well, I don't think men are from Mars and women are from Venus. I think they come from Pluto and Neptune. Really? Well, I think you're wrong there.
Yeah. Well, I actually don't even think they come from the solar system.
I think they come from beehives.
And we always have the choice to look at our boxes because they live inside us. And I think by having our boxes and not being aware about them, we actually sustain the outwardly visible boxes that are often mirrored in society. And what I like very much is that you not only created this beautiful No More Boxes movement and wrote this book that I loved reading, actually there are also No More Boxes breakfast clubs where people meet in person and speak about these things. I find this so interesting. Can you tell us a little more about it?
Yeah. Rúna, go with this one.
Yeah. So
this was Runa's idea. The breakfast club was Runa's idea. The breakfast
club, yeah. I love eating. Self-centered. The whole thing about breakfast club, one of the things that happened in that taxi ride, we don't even know the name of the taxi driver, by the way, but no, okay. Breakfast club, the whole concept there was, how about if we get people together, really physically together, like in the old times when we actually went to visit people and we knocked on the door and we said, are you home? Is there coffee or tea on the table? And we sit down and we have a deep conversation. Now, just a little side story for this. I'm raised in a family where we had these type of discussions. I wouldn't say as deep as we go in the Breakfast Club, but quite deep. So this is something that my box, I actually thought this was, when I stepped into the world, I thought this was what everyone did. Mm-hmm. But I found out that it wasn't. And I had to adapt to that. But what we wanted to create was to create a safe space to open up. Because one of the things that I learned down in my life is that one of the reasons why people don't open up, one of the reasons why we don't go deeper is because we are not used to it. We haven't done it. It's something that has not been part of our culture or part of our upbringing or whatever it is. But we crave it. We want to understand who we are and why we do things. And we want to open up. And we want to see things and see that we can be the change that we want to see in our world. So we want to create that safe space for people to, in a non-judgmental way, have a conversation that opens their box up, that gives them a light to something that they were not aware of. And what we found out in the Breakfast Club, that people, I mean, every single one of our participants have said, oh my God, I was not aware that this is how I was just wired. I was wired. Because in one of the things when we talk about, you know, I often use the description of talking like the glacier. When you look at a glacier, you know, 10% of a glacier is on the top above the surface.
Iceberg.
Sorry. Yeah, the iceberg. Sorry. Thank you. Good thing I'm from Iceland and you're from UK.
I know that.
Yeah. The iceberg, the 10% of the iceberg is what you see. And that's where we're used to talk about that. 90% is below the surface. So we're going below the surface in the conversations. And when we're allowed to go there and we can just explore, that's where magic happens. Yeah. And so what we've done, not only we are doing that in the Breakfast Club, we're going deeper, but we're also looking at, okay, now that we understand things in a different way, now how do we want to see this? How do we want to see the world? So we open up for that as well. And every person that is involved in a Breakfast Club takes something away. It takes away something that they are going to do individually to become the change that they want to see in their world. Because after all, it all starts with ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And they lovely description of them, really. And the thing I'll add to that is they're really fun.
Yeah,
they're people, because we take people. We've got this process we take people through, and one of them is looking at identifying some things people have in the boxes. And when people write this down, they kind of go, I cannot believe I've just put this down.
Yeah.
I cannot believe I've just put it down. Because what we've got them to do is we get them to take out from their unconscious mind and put it down, not their conscious mind. And they say, I cannot believe I have that sitting in my unconscious mind. I feel, and initially people feel slightly embarrassed. They say, I put down this.
And then they whisper.
And we just laugh. And people say, guess what I put down? I put down this. And we just have real fun and amusement that what's it, because as you said earlier, Nina, you said these boxes are sitting in us. They're sitting in our unconscious mind, not in our conscious mind. So when the process, we get them to just come out from their unconscious mind, what they have in these boxes, and people are amused, they're shocked, they're surprised, they're bemused. They just think, but it's a curious, fun experience of getting people just to open up the box and say, hey, guess what I just found in my box?
Yeah.
It's really, and then we do some stuff to kind of help people resolve it. So it's really
it's fun.
Really
it's
fun.
Yeah.
Really fun.
And we've been so lucky that we've been doing this now with people We did it in worldwide, and we're extending that, and we're offering that in places that people are open for it. I think that, and I see this everywhere, that people are more and more open today to look inwards, look at what is happening with meditation and mindfulness and spirituality, and so there are more and more people. Luckily, there are more and more people out there who are ready.
But we have a challenge with the breakfast clubs.
Yeah.
In the breakfast clubs, they're designed around 8 people.
Yeah.
So they're very small, intimate things. So we also have a breakthrough event, which you can use for a lot. It's the same basic principle, but you use it for a larger group of people. And the advantage of doing that is you can take a workforce or a community or a group of people together, and you can take them through a common experience to identify a particular box, and then say, okay, say you pick the gender box. You then, at the end of the breakthrough experience, you've changed people's perception of what gender is. You've broken down unconscious biases. You've created a common language. So if a company, for example, is struggling to get a gender balance, or struggling with unconscious bias, or struggling with language that the workforce is using, or there is division, or they're not meeting targets, or they're not being productive because there is inequality, a gender inequality. It's a really interesting process that you take people through to change the culture of the organization. And that's different than a breakfast club, which is very, very intense, 8 people really drilling down. The breakthrough events is a much, and I think that's where we're perhaps going to see more of our work.
Yeah.
Because the breakfasts are designed that people can run their own breakfast clubs. The idea is that we're not doing it. Lots of people can say, and one of the
I want to do this. That's what they're saying.
Yeah, and one of the ones we ran in the UK, someone said, oh, I would just love to do this breakfast club for young parents who have just had a kid, and get them to see that they don't bring up their child with boxes. I want to run these with young parents. Someone else said, oh, okay, I want to actually run these with health practitioners. I want to run. So every one we do, people say, oh, I want to run one of these with and related.
The need, yeah.
So we don't see us running the breakfast clubs. It's really initiating them, showing people how to run them, doing breakthrough events with bigger organizations. And it's all just breaking down boxes, creating a language culture shift.
Yeah. So that it actually can become, organization can be both diverse and inclusive. They can, I love the quote that I was reading the other day. It was about the importance of not only diversity. They said, diversity is like being asked to a party. Inclusion is like being asked to dance.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
I love that, and I think it's exactly what it is. You can go deeper into this, and that I think where we are going with the No More Boxes movement and the breakthrough events and breakfast club, it's really about that. It's about lighting things up. Nick and I will never do anything that is not going to be happiness and joy and some laughter into it. Because I think one of the things that I've seen in our own journey, and I know now I talk about both of us, but I've really seen it that we've grown a lot. I've seen myself grow, and I've seen Nick grow as we've become more and more both aware ourselves, and also in the process of helping others. We're learning so much on this journey. And the only thing that I can say is life is so precious that if we don't do this, if we don't step into this, give ourselves space and give ourselves time to explore and be aware, and do it in a way that serves us, humankind, then what else is there, really?
And we are definitely at a pivotal time in society where we need to do these shifts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is a time we are the generation, this is our watch, that we need to sort things out. There's not going to be a second chance. This is the chance we have to resolve some of these deep, deep issues. And No More Boxes is just one way to help resolve some of these deep issues. So we're very privileged for doing this.
And this is actually one of the quotes I wrote down from the book because it so spoke to me. It says, if you are not aware of your boxes, nothing will change for you or the world. And so I really think it's up to every single one of us. And so how can everyone who is interested find out more about the two of you, the Normal Boxes movement, the breakfast clubs, the change makers? Where can they go?
Rúna,
okay, I can do that if you. I think there are. Make it easy. Let's make it easy. And the website that we use, and you can see about us, but you can get insight into where all of our events and press releases from results from the events and which we collect. You can go to nomoreboxesmovement.com. You can also, what we want to invite people who want to be part of our journey and want to become a change maker themselves, because this is something that change makers worldwide are stepping into, and that is to become our Patreon. And so you go to patreon.com/nomoreboxes and you can join our movement.
And then there's the Facebook group, right?
Oh yeah, and then it's the Facebook group where we have all sorts of conversations. And then of course, Nick and myself, we are active in the social media under our own names. So it's, I'm Rúna Magnús, more or less everywhere on the social media. And Nick?
Yeah, I'm fairly disorganized. It's usually,
I know. You probably did this before you started to know me as a personal branding nerd.
I know, I think I did.
Yeah.
So it's usually Nick Haines. Search under there, you'll see me in social. But if you go to nomoreboxesmovement.com, everything, just go there. Everything links out from there. That's the simplest place to go. But it is looking for people that want to join in on this big journey, this big thing of trying to solve deep and meaningful problems in the world by being aware of our boxes and deciding what we want to do about them.
Yeah, and we will link to all important places right below this interview so everybody can find you. So before I close, is there anything important that we forgot or oversaw that we should mention here?
Should I go with a quick one, Rúna?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I think we kind of touched on it, and I think this is really that this stuff about boxes is not about blame. It's not about making anyone wrong. We just created these boxes because they make sense for us. So it makes sense for us to create the boxes. It just doesn't make any sense for us to live in them.
Yeah.
So no blame, nothing. We're not wrong. Nothing. Just we create these boxes. Just we get to choose whether or not we want to live in them, whether we want to have someone else. And that's the big thing. We get to choose, which is hence about liberation, peace, and happiness. Liberate yourself. You'll be more peaceful, more happy if you get out of them.
And just remember, it's really your choice and to do something about it. And I think it's a good thing to always be reminded that you can, because you're never going to get out of this life alive anyway.
Maybe that's a box.
Maybe that's a box. That's the ultimate box.
Yeah, well, then you go to the ultimate box.
Yeah.
Rúna and Nick, thank you so much from my heart for this beautiful, beautiful conversation and for spending this time and being in this space with me.
Oh, absolute pleasure, Nina. We'll do anything for you. Anything for you.
Mind Gourmet rocks.
Yeah.
Well, you too. And it's so beautiful to create things together. I love the Together box.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful.
So with this beautiful feeling in my heart, goodbye everybody. And always remember to take the driver's seat of this car called your life and create this lifetime to your taste. It's our pleasure here at MindGourmet to support you with our food for thought. Bye, Rúna and Nick. Bye, everyone.
Bye.